All right, hello. It's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time we're covering 22.2. And we get this nice rendition of Quinn Kaye. Oh, it's Vale. Hey, Vale. I really like this picture because, Quinn is the inspiration of this, audience participation question for this week, which was, who's your favorite unpowered character in Worm? And Victoria commented that she had to try hard to not accidentally make him look like a lesbian, so I don't know if those things are related, but I love his smarminess. I think it's funny that she almost accidentally made him look like a lesbian instead of a sexy man. I think that says something about Vic more than it does about Quinn Kaye. Vale says, hope you're well, was wondering. Yeah. We missed the stream last week, but I will say, I generally try not to super talk about timely stuff because I do kind of want it to be evergreen, but just as aside from that, from normal, I'm hoping to make up for the couple times that I've missed and be back on track to have done an episode a week from the start of the time that I began streaming. So I've been pretty consistent up until the last couple months, and then things sort of got more difficult to maintain. But I think we're going to be back on track soon. Anyway, moving back into the world of the current stream. Vale also said about Quinn, he would be a contender if it wasn't for a certain therapist who is the best person in the universe. Yes. I did pre-read your answer, so I know you have, I would say, and this is not to downplay the take, but probably the community take that Jessica is the best unpowered character. But I gotta break the mold. I can't just have the same fave as everybody else. Which is, I don't know if it's a ridiculous statement to say, since my favorite parahuman is Antares. It's like, one of the protagonists, so original. Vale says, maybe you need to see a therapist about your need to break the molds. No, I think that it's a perfectly acceptable trait. So I've chosen not to see Jessica Yamada, fictional therapist, about my need to break the mold. Anyway. So, as for themes in this chapter, let me think. There's another one of them winging it episodes, I think they use, procedure and bureaucracy against Tag, and they use their knowledge of the system And I do think that it's thematically resonant with the rest of the book, because I think they're always talking about things like logistics, like how do we get food to people? How do we get them clean supplies? Even if we give them supplies, how are they supposed to sort of deal with it without like these other tools? Like when we see the example of the people who can't cook the rice well because they didn't have anything to measure out the water versus the rice, so they would either burn too much propane to heat up the water, or they would not have enough water and sort of spoil the rice, although you can add water later if you truly screw it up like that. Anyway, I think just logistics and bureaucracy and red tape are very important themes in this chapter, as they have been throughout the bulk of the book. I mean, hell, like the devil being in the details is shown as far back as like chapter 2, when Taylor's thinking about all the specifics of her costume and stuff, and I kind of just feel like that's the kind of nitty gritty we get into here, with like the way that she's going to be charged in court and like stuff like that. Bill says Brockton Bay DoorDash, Skitter takes over. Yeah, she'd fly little bugs to lift little food containers around. It would not be sanitary, and there would be spider webs over everything. Although I guess she could have the bugs remove the spider webs. I don't know. She is pretty powerful. Maybe I'm underestimating it. She could do like an outer layer on all the packages so that they have a decontaminated center. Skitter. I wonder. Bale says she could walk them on phalanxes of cockroaches too, if there was a walking path. Yeah, and slosh them in all the water on the streets. That'd be very helpful. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's all the theme that I need. Is that sort of that thing. I mean, it's not really a theme, but there's a big surprise revelation. But that's just kind of how books work. Let's see here. I'm gonna jump into the chapter. It starts out with Taylor calling her lawyer. Oh no, I gotta sneeze. What a tragedy. Alright, hang on. It's that terrible type of sneeze where it's not fully hitting. Okay. I just have to try and go through this, and if I suddenly sneeze, it's going to happen, and everybody's going to hear it. I'm not going to try and mute my mic anymore. If this were a Metal Gear game, it would be Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Sneeze. So she's talking to her lawyer, Mr. Quinn Kaye Esquire. I'll try and call him Kaye, but it's funny to me to call him Quinn because of Victoria and I's friend Quinn. So he's at some shop, and he's in Skitter's territory, and he's very delighted to hear from Taylor, because he was worrying that something had happened to the point where she couldn't make a phone call from custody. To sort of assuage the fears of who we have to assume is Charlotte, Taylor code words like fly in a paper box as something for Mr. Kaye to say to Charlotte, and that gets the people of Skitter's territory on her side, or his side. And then he sort of offers to bring her food, and at first she's annoyed, and she's about to say, just get here. But then she does like a power play over Tag, where she's like, yeah, I'll have a BLT and a sugar donut and some tea. And so Tag is unimpressed. Mr. Kai is a very charming man, and he's clearly going to speed and drive very recklessly to get there. I'll talk about that in the character section, I think. Um, Put down a note. Okay, so but yeah, he's off the phone, and then Tag just starts antagonizing Taylor. She can't sit comfortably because the whole table setup is sort of built for someone bigger, and it's built to be like very restraintive. So she sits back to the back of her chair, like her she has to like hold her hands out for the handcuffs, and they still sort of cut into her wrists. So she's just sort of slumped forward. She's not even slumped onto the table. She's just sort of hunched this whole time. Very just the situation is shitty for her on purpose for no real good reason. Just to mess with her. And she just ignores Tag the whole time. He starts talking about his backstory, how he was at the site of the first... first he starts off with the birdcage, and he's starting by saying, like, oh, I hate the birdcage, I hate what it represents. Also, I'm going to be doing my Tag voice a lot in these chapters. I love pretending to be Tag. He's just such a piece of shit. But, yeah, he's like, the birdcage, it's terrible. And I'd rather just kill you than use the birdcage. But he's also like, but I'd rather use the birdcage than let you go free. He just really hates Taylor. And what she represents. And the main thing about using the Tag voice is it's just not sustainable. It just makes me cough, like, immediately. So I gotta limit myself to some degree, but I wish I could just do it all the time, because it's really just an endless well of comedy to me. So I think that this European city is called Lausanne, but I don't know. It could be pronounced some crazy European way, and I could sound like a fool right now. But he had been there, which is the people who were affected by the Seamerg initially, when the Seamerg had sort of stopped and just hovered around for a while before doing the scream. I'm pretty sure the Seamerg doesn't actually need to use the scream to see the future and to, like, fuck with people. So I'm pretty sure she was just, like, doing the crazy, like, future-seeking stuff on all these people for multiple days, and then did the scream in such a way to, like, maximize everything. So this is, like, because she got such an uncontested go at all these people, and, like, seeing their futures and stuff, she could make them especially bad, which, like, would scare people for the future for what she'd do. Oh, the Seamerg. Vale says, I tried reading Ward to my wife. I got through about 2 arcs before I gave up for the same reason. I would be coughing constantly within minutes. Which character would make you cough? There are many that could. Is it like your Victoria voice was too high for your low registers, or what are we talking here? You could give Victoria a smoky voice. In fact, give all... Oh, just reading out loud did it? Oh, that's too bad, Huh. Well, maybe someday. Maybe you can build up to it. It only happens to me when I do the gruff voices, because they really mess with my voice box. I mean, I can do them for like 20 seconds, but it's not very good. I used to be able to do it longer, but, I think it just wears away at you a little bit. Sometimes you just do it anyway. Tag in his story slams his hand down and does get a little jump out of Taylor, who's not expecting a sudden hand slamming on the table that her face is 1 inch from. Vale says, maybe the gruff voice would be less harsh if you sang it instead of spoke it. Oh, man. I'd have to, like, pre-hear in my head what I was going to sing. I'd have to, like future sight it a little bit, and then maybe I could do it, but I think it would take too much build up. There would be a bunch of dead air if I tried to do it right now. But yes, it could be a very funny experience. And also, I mean, I do think it would wear my voice out just as fast, so it would end in a coughing fit. It could be hilarious, but we're gonna save it. Boop, 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 boop. I'm just Tag. You know, I just have to do all the bad things to make Taylor angry. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm getting distracted. So, you know, Tag hates the birdcage. Tag wants to send Taylor to the birdcage. Taylor doesn't engage with him. He gets in some good jabs. He's like, I thought you were smart. I thought you'd know big words, but it turns out you're a dummy. You don't even know what I'm saying right now. Anyway. So apparently some other capes have tried to take over cities even in just the past few weeks since Taylor did it. Someone in Alaska had people who killed 3 people. This is again one where I'm gonna say a word and just hope that I'm saying it right. Heimal. It could easily be pronounced some other way. So I'm sorry, Heimal, if I am pronouncing your name wrong. And you know, they're like 3 people were killed in his attempt to take over the city in Alaska. And I'm thinking, like, didn't the ABB and the E88 kill like tons and tons of people each? And like, I don't know. I get what they're saying, that like these people were killed in a specific town takeover, and so that is somehow on Taylor. But like, she has considerably lowered the amount of murders in Brockton Bay, so it's just kind of a, you know, there's different ways to look at it. And I think the idea that she's responsible for those 3 dead people in Alaska is pretty ridiculous. So Mr. Kaye arrives and, you know, he makes his way downstairs pretty quickly. Taylor senses him in the front room and stuff, checking in at the desk. But, you know, obviously when she announces that he had arrived, then Tag doesn't care. He just keeps his shit going. But he actually arrives at the cell, and he introduces himself to Tag, but Tag already knows who he is, and instead of reacting negatively to this, because it's an obvious, like, I hate you, then Quinn's just like, excellent, that should make the rest of this easier. I just think this interaction is great. He's so chipper, and he requests any recent paperwork or charges or anything, and then he totally gets a jab in at their integrity, which, like, you know, not that I expect these people to have integrity, but he does piss them off but by like being like, you can't have anybody behind that one-way mirror, and leave the cameras off. And then Tag's like, I can't believe that you'd think I'd do a dirty trick like that. And it's basically like, but of course you would. You're a real piece of shit, you know? And then after they leave, then he introduces himself to Taylor. He's saying that well, he's about to go through a whole song and dance probably, but Taylor cuts him off and says that they have a time limit. He gets straight to business. She tells him what time it is now, 1:12, and that they have until 8:30. And he doesn't inquire into like what the time limit does. He just gets, he continues right off, and he talks about how he shouldn't be a lawyer in a jury trial because the scar on his face makes people not like him. But she keeps assuring him over and over again that she doesn't want this to be a trial, that she wants to end it before that. And he keeps trying to lead things toward a trial because I don't think that he thinks they have a realistic path forward without a trial. But things do change over the course of the next few chapters. So, they start going through her charges, and I think it's like hilarious. She's like, chime in, but don't panic, all right? Okay. April 10th, criminal negligence with a parahuman ability. 16 charges of assault. 16 charges of battery with a parahuman ability. And she's able to place that as long. And then he's asking, like, do they think that they could, like, to basically weigh in and say if she thinks they, like, who the charges were against, if she thinks they could stick, whatever. Vale's saying stuff. Little does he know, Taylor has ways to move things forward. And then also, I absolutely adore the charges section. Yeah, it's like that thing where, of course, we know all of these events have happened, but it's just funny when you just list them like this. I don't know. It works for me. Again, despite the direness of these chapters, there's a lighthearted quality to this arc. I was on the edge of my seat in a oh no way for a lot of different arcs when I first read this book. But for whatever reason, I knew everything would be fine during this arc. I was not oh knowing as though it were arc 14 or 19 or whatever. Vale says there are specific sections of Worm that are truly inspired storytelling. That section is one of them. Yeah, this is great. They talk about how the charges against her from Lung could probably stick because they're like documented like injuries to a person who was arrested. Basically, she doesn't say that, but that's probably her gut response. But the other like ABB gang members can't really. They're not gonna like be there to testify or whatever. Okay, let's run down the list. April 14th. 32 charges of willful felony assault with a parahuman ability. 32 charges of hostage taking, technically domestic terrorism, each perpetrated with a parahuman ability. Robbery with a parahuman ability. Willful damage to government property. Disturbing the peace. That's it very much feels like one of those arson, murder, and jaywalking, like, disturbing the peace. Appended to the end of a domestic terrorism charge. Or 32 of them, rather. The bank robbery. I didn't damage any property. Right. April 24th, 1 case of battery. And that's when she punched Emma. And then they move on to... and we learned that Emma only brought up the charges in the last week since her Taylor's identity was outed. So they think either Tag leaned on her or something, but they're not fully sure. And then they have the Forsberg Gallery attack from Arc 6, where I kind of wish I had lined up images of all the different, of all her past crimes. Yeah. Maybe I'll do a slideshow next time if I remember. Crime, crime, crime. um, but yeah, that was them attacking the heroes. I'm almost surprised they didn't have more charges for her now that I think about it from Arc 5 and the very, very opening of 6 when they were fighting the ABB, because she was caught on camera a couple times outside of burning ABB headquarters and like fighting dudes. So there was very much like arson and assault on the table. I don't know. But yeah, they have. Oh, Vale says they said, I think there were multiple people who refused to press or discuss charges. Yeah, but I mean, I think that given that they were doing charges for all of Lung's henchmen who were attacked, that would mean that they're willing to press charges like without having the person who was the victim do the thing. Because, I mean, you don't actually need the victim to be the one to press charges, as far as I know, with a violent crime. I'm not 100% sure on all the specifics, but I'm pretty sure that the state can just go, like in America, can just go after you anyway. Whether that be like the local government or the like county or state or federal. I'm pretty sure that people can just go after you if they have evidence that you did a violent crime. That charges can be pressed. Because I'm pretty sure that's how they got her on the Lung stuff in the first place. I don't think Lung is pressing charges against her. Vale says it's probably much easier if the person is available and doesn't press charges to defend again. Exactly. Like, that's part of what Mr. Kaye here is trying to get across to her, is that most of these won't stick around or even be able to be brought to a jury trial because if you can even find the person the crime was done against, they're not going to testify, kind of thing. But just because they're throwing everything at the wall, I thought they would have gotten those ones where she fought the ABB as part of a team up. Maybe it was too crass even for them to cross that line because there was a clear truce between the heroes and the villains at the time to fight the ABB and to not cross each other. I don't know. Anyway, even without those, we're still. Vale says it would have been great to add truancy, 114 counts or something. Yeah. Oh my God, they could totally charge her with truancy, depending on like the place. I mean, I don't know that everywhere have truancy laws like that, but some places are like really strict on truancy laws in like ways that seem crazy to me. Anyway, I myself was a truant, although I mostly called myself in sick, so it didn't it didn't come back on me most of the time. Although I did have to petition for credit to get like to pass each grade almost every single year. Because I would just miss so many days. Not a big school fan, personally. Although I wasn't bullied like Taylor, I hated the restrictive environment. But yeah, so the charges are not for attacking the heroes, and like Vale had brought up, a lot of people had not decided to file charges against her. Like none of the heroes have on any of the Protectorate and Wards members, which surprises Taylor because she thinks that it's easy to imagine Armsmaster not filing charges because of his new turnaround, but it's surprising to think about Assault or Miss Militia, and then the hardest yet is the Wards. I mean, she put bugs in Clock Blocker's nose. as we discussed way back when, pretty bad. Let's see here. So she's not sure why they didn't have the heroes, but Kaye does bring up the fact that if the heroes were involved, they'd have to testify, and then they'd have to deal with like the secret identities of the hero, etc. It's a whole thing. Although you can vouch for your identity as the hero pretty easily, given that most heroes have a unique power. Like you could just clock blocker something to be like, yes, it is I, clock blocker. Vale says Clocky is holding out for the possible ship at this point in the story. Makes sense. Oh, I see. So clock blocker talked all his friends into not pressing charges. He's like, trust me, guys. She's probably gonna go out with me. Definitely what happened. So on June 5th, which is when she declared her territory treason, and she's like, that's not what I did. And he says that the heroes and such are going to cast it in the light of her declaring war against the government of the United States of America when she declared having her own territory. And on the same day, they had also charged her with 30 cases of assault and battery, and 6 cases of aggravated assault with a parahuman ability, which I have to imagine that's when she torched all those, she torched one person and bug-piled many in the streets of her territory from the merchants. And then they, the wards, that PRT and such don't even know about it, but she also attacked tons and tons of people with knives and bugs later that evening. But let's see here. So 3 days later, she's got 12 more. 2 more days later, she's got 3 more cases of assault with parahuman ability. And then, like, some of them are in different degrees. And then 3 more days later, she's got 3 more cases of assault with a parahuman ability. 3 days after that, she's got disturbing the peace and property damage. She's not even remembering what all these, go to exactly. The next day, she gets assault and battery, 5 charges, aggravated assault with a parahuman ability, and criminal extortion. This puts her back on track, and she remembers that's the mayor. Oh, thank God we can remember which crime we've been doing again. And then, let's see here. She gets a bunch of destruction of government property for destroying the mobile suits, hostage taking of a law enforcement. It's hostage taking, assault, and battery of a law enforcement officer. So triple charge for kidnapping Director Pigot. And then there's complicity in another count of treason. Complicity in manslaughter, 19 counts. So they're trying to say she was complicit in the Coyle blows up the mayoral debate debacle. And then she's like, apparently the murders were staged. And he's like, we'll have to look into that. But it probably sounds like, I don't know. If you were Quinn Kaye at that moment, I guess there's no reason not to believe Taylor, but it's also like, that one's staged. I didn't do that. Sure, we'll look into that. And then after that, they have to wait for Miss Militia to bring them the current records of everything that's happened. And I mean, that was way back in Arc 16, so we don't have any charges from the last 3 weeks of when she's been going around wreaking havoc. Um, she goes, more assault and battery, whatever. This is one of those peak comedy moments. More assault and battery, I said, feeling a touch weary. Whatever charges come up with the thing at the school. I sort of arranged to have a psychopath kill herself. However you'd charge putting maggots in someone's eyeballs in self-defense. He didn't even flinch at that. I see. Any other charges that might catch us by surprise? Premeditated murder of a law enforcement officer. Miss Militia knows, but she's kept quiet on it. I see, Mr. Kaye said. He frowned briefly. It was Coyle. Director Calvert was Coyle. All right then, Mr. Kaye said. He met my eyes and smiled. Believe it or not, I've handled worse. Vale said exactly, which I'm hoping was to this most recent thing, because I didn't actually see. Oh, blast it all. I think I didn't turn off my Discord notifications. Okay, so, let's see here. But Vale also said, I'd just say I've seen worse. Well, I thought to myself, holy shit, I have never seen worse. I believe Quinn Kaye when he says he's seen worse. But, man, it's just so funny. Like, I murdered the last PRT director. Slight frown. All right then. And like, not only that, but she told Miss Militia. And then he brings them back to focus, and he's like, we need to talk about our goals. And then he talks about getting a certain level of amnesty for helping with S-class threats, which is a thing that is only really available in Parahuman's world, but makes total sense. That would earn you some leniency in the, like, when you have to be in these mega death fights that a bunch of heroes die. But I like this. They're going to want to put together a jury that hasn't heard of you, which would be difficult. To those people, it's going to sound downright preposterous that a 16-year-old girl is being charged with treason and terrorism, especially after we reduce the number of assault and battery charges to single digits. I just love it how he's like, we're just gonna take the truth and make it seem ridiculous, and we'll be fine. And she says again that she doesn't want a jury trial. He tries to argue for why a jury trial would be good, and then she's trying to talk about like what they could get in a plea deal, and he's saying that if she took a plea deal, she would definitely have to do some time for doing some crime. She says she can live with the consequences, and then she asks what they can actually do to force the PRT to do what they say instead of just, like, you know, not following through with the deal. And they can prepare contracts, but they can only really, like, Mr. Kai feels like they can only really put financial penalties on them, but then, puts the idea out there without saying anything specific of, like, maybe if you have something to hold over their head, and then, basically she's like thinking, Tattletale could say bad things that they don't want to be public. And then they also think of the idea to like make her the terms and conditions of her surrender public by having a press conference. And then they they do discuss what she wants her terms and conditions to be, but that's off screen. They work with his office. There's a page break because a bunch of time passes, an hour and a half to start, to get everything together for what's going to be like in the thing, to get everything typed. It's 20 more minutes to get everything typed. 10 more minutes to go to the print shop where they've sent the information. And then, which, like, lucky them that there's a working print shop again. The city's all messed up. I guess it's been 3 weeks, but and then there's additional 15 more minutes when he's just reading and reading. So I guess it was 127. So an hour and a half from 127 is 257. Then it's 317. Then it's 327. I'm sure this is riveting stuff for the audience. So 327, 15 more minutes, so it's 342. So they've burned up a bunch of time. And then here at 342, he's like, it's bare bones. We could have done much better with more notice. But Taylor says that they couldn't have prepared anything in advance because there were too many moving parts. And while she's kind of right, like, not that much changed in the last week that she couldn't give them warning of what she wanted on some fronts. Like, one of her demands is that Tag steps down, and they have info about that. That could have definitely been on the record already. And so, they call in the other side, and she says that they come in force. They've got Tag, the deputy director, not important enough to be named, Miss Militia, Clock Blocker, and Miss Yamada. So they have all five. And then, the three head people all sit down, and Clock Blocker and Yamada are standing in the back. And then Quinn Kaye starts saying their demands, and then they're like, televised. Right, let's pretend she didn't plan for that. Go on. Wow, even like 3 lines. I couldn't live my life as Tag. And then they demand clemency for past crimes. You're kidding me. You want us to play nice? And then Miss Melissa's shifting around a bit, but she's already heard all this, basically. And then Quinn goes back in. He's saying that, they would need special allowances to allow the Undersiders to basically fight criminals. And they're saying that this is terrible. They would never do this. They're never going to stop pursuing those Undersiders. The way that Taylor's framing all of it through Quinn Kaye is that they would focus their efforts on new criminal threats that are coming into the area, and the Undersiders would also be focused on the same people, so they wouldn't be wasting their energy on each other, etc., and they'd be ready for Endbringer fights and everything. Tag's saying he can't let that happen, etc., and then this is when Kaye breaks out that they have a condition for Tag to retire, and that he has actually fulfilled all the requirements for his pension, so he'll get a full pension. And then Taylor tries to sideways appeal to Miss Militia, I think, by basically saying that Tag is dangerous, and that she just sort of parrots back stuff at him. You'd let the world burn to give me a bloody nose? You said it yourself. You're unyielding, and we need compromise. And then this is when Kaye says that one of their demands is that Miss Militia is the new head of the PRT for Brockton Bay. And everybody, pushes back on this. Miss Militia's like, the PRT is led by non-capes. And then Taylor's like, that's specifically what I want to change. The non-capes don't get it. They're coming from a bad place. They're combative against the capes, and they don't think things through in the way they need to, etc. She's, Tag's like, you just want Miss Militia because she'll be easy to manipulate. And then, Taylor's like, that's not really true. I don't think she'll be very easy to manipulate. And she's got gun power, and no one really wants to sit in the room with you when you have gun power. So, nobody's going to come for you like they would maybe an unpowered person. Although, I will say, there's a lot of capes that just do not care about gun power. Because for various means they're just immune to physical objects. But I get what she's saying. Like, Miss Militia could sure take out Taylor in the current circumstances, even if Taylor was unbound and standing across the room, Just, Miss Militia's dangerous enough. More dangerous than Tag, certainly. And then Triumph is like, what if we have a figurehead with Miss Militia secretly doing things behind the scenes? And then Taylor's like, but the point of what I'm trying to do is have a public-facing change. Not secretly have Miss Militia control it, but really just out in the open for real do it. To set the precedent. And then, obviously Tag is like saying what he says is, your arrogance boggles the fucking mind. And then, they go back and forth and stuff, but essentially she does want things to change, and he's saying she's too small a fry for that. And then she says that she has one more request, that instead of going to jail, she be tasked with going around with Dragon and Defiant to fight the Slaughterhouse 9. And then, actually, when she's saying it's not constructive to put her in jail, this is when Miss Yamada gets her moment. She says, what would you have us do? And this is when Taylor says, to fight Jack Slash, specifically. And then Tag is like, you're behind the times, little girl. And they open up a laptop to bust out some information. They get some stuff about Toy Box. And, Tag has been waiting all day to do this to Taylor. She says who or where is Toy Box to be, trying to cover her bases. And then he still gets her ass, what's Toy Box? And then she rolls her eyes infinitely and says, what's Toy Box? You got me, Tag. And this is when they read the laptop. They're like a Tinker enclave, and they do all sorts of Tinker stuff. But their current lineup of people had a stasis person and a pocket dimension person, and also memory sapping and implanting person. And that's all on top of the fact that Bonesaw got Blasto for clones. Piles and piles of clones. So, they got a lot of resources at their hands, let's say. And they're horrified at the thought, and when she hears about the clones, she's like, if anything, you need all the help you can get. This is serious. And that's when Miss Militia goes, it's complicated. Seems pretty damn simple. And then they explain that they've used the dimension hopping cape Dodge, his powers, to tinker up a device that let them sort of escape out of our world, back to our world in a different place, then out of our world again. And until we know where they left for the current pocket dimension, we can't have any way of following them into it. So they're safe. They got a safe home base. And they could potentially enter stasis and come out at any time in the future. They discuss whether or not Jack knows the timeline in which he's supposed to end the world. He does not. He knows that he is supposed to end the world, but not that it's a 2 years thing. But we can remember with our big smart brains that our young friend Theo was tasked with getting ready to fight Jack in 2 years, like getting powers and being ready to defeat the Slaughterhouse Nine and then killing Jack in 2 years. So probably that will be his marker regardless. And it's funny that Miss Militia says stasis and then Clock Blocker says how long. Just one of those tiny details of like Clock Blocker, the guy who can't control the length of a stasis, asking how long they'll be in stasis, and then they can't know for sure. Just the little things. Then Taylor realizes that Tattletale should have been able to see this had happened with Slaughterhouse 9, but it happened within the last week, and her power's been out of commission that whole time. And she kept like overdriving it and getting back in the mix, even though it was already out of commission, to like see the new people accord God and like to do all these little things. So she missed all this key juicy info about the Slaughterhouse 9. It's almost like they don't have enough power within just the Undersiders to fight everyone all the time on all fronts. Almost like that. Nah, it couldn't be. Couldn't be. So, let's see. They talk about, some ominous silence hangs in the air after they're done talking about that. And then, they say that they'll need time to revise their demands now that they know about the Slaughterhouse 9 escaping. And then Tag says, better do some heavy revisions and do it fast. And then Miss Militia is very guarded body language because, Taylor's a body language expert. She has her own... She has her own course that she'll sell you online about how to read other people's body language. But Miss Militia is guarded, so she thinks for a moment that, maybe she'll have some sympathy from Miss Militia. But then this is forgotten when she hears Tag mention that the only two words that are caught are her father, but it's clear to us that he's going to bring Danny down to the station and question him and then like throw it in Taylor's face, etc. So, dun dun dun! I don't know. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, it happens and it's a big deal for Taylor, but when it was happening, I was not like perturbed by this. I was kind of like, oh, this is good. They'll kind of get a chance to like face each other, I guess. Even if her meeting with Danny doesn't go well, I just didn't think it was going to be that bad. My spirits were very high when I was listening to Arc 22 until the point, the sort of, there's like two climaxes to the arc. The point after the first climax of the arc, where I was like, oh no. I mean, we'll get to it eventually, but man, I love this arc. It just keeps me in high spirits most of the way. And then with that little lull, they had to have some danger, and then it's shenanigans again. Anyway, great chapter. amazing conversations. This is again part of the like anything in the second half of the book. The dialogue is probably just excellent. Mr. Kaye introduces this like really fun vector for information to be given to us, and like seeing the charges. I'm glad the lawyer isn't like some uptight guy. I'm glad it's like kind of a like he's very effective, but he's like well, charming is the right word. I found him charming just as they wanted me to from the very start. So Wildbow, you done good. I was charmed. Perhaps too easily charmed, but I was charmed. Let's see. Final chapter thoughts. I mean, this has some all-timer lines, like the however you'd charge putting maggots in someone's eyeballs in self-defense. Like, does it get any better than that, really? Anyway, arc stuff, it just sort of, it progresses in a way that makes sense. Again, I think the last chapter being extra long and having the Dinah stuff happen then rather than now is good. It really propels it that this chapter starts with her getting the lawyer involved, so we don't have to like do as much waiting. Like the waiting is more or less done with. People will be using time as a like maneuver against each other at this point, but just having Taylor stew is over with. And also, what else? Seeing the sort of shifting tides of who's doing what keeps us interested. Like, I think it was a really good play to have Taylor say that she wanted to fight the Nine, but then like it's this whole revelation that they defeated Toy Box, because we learned about Toy Box as a thing in that earlier chapter, but we just had no way of really conceiving the importance of what had, it's like, oh, that's just another clue to what the Slaughterhouse 9 is doing. Kind of a, it almost feels like one of those snippets that doesn't matter. Wildbow's really good at weaving in tons of things that some of them matter, some of them don't. And it's more like, I think it's more like he just throws down breadcrumbs, seeds, as he's going, and just goes back and figures out which ones to pick up later. So, but yeah, great pacing, great character introduction. Moving on to the characters section, we get a little tiny Dennis moment that I thought was funny. Him asking how long a stasis will last is just like, I don't know. It got me. He's shocked by the demands of Taylor. You know what I just realized? She says that Triumph is in there with them. But I don't remember him being there when she said who showed up. We'll just pretend that previous sentence about how Yamada and everybody was showing up also included Triumph. I mean, anyway. I think sometimes Wildbow imagines that he wrote a character into a scene, but he kinda didn't, but now they're there. It's not like a plot hole, it's just, you just need to add one or two words to that previous sentence and we're good. So I somehow forgot Rory was there. Dennis / Rory. They both get in one good line. Vale says, I bet that is why Imp exists. He accidentally added her, then made up the power. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so Dennis, Rory, they don't do that much. They just sort of facilitate ideas getting thrown out there without having to use Miss Militia, Tag, or Yamada to voice them. Similarly, Miss Militia is there and voices the, asks Taylor what she wants, which I think will help lead Taylor in later stuff to be like, I thought you treated me fairly when she talks to Miss Militia. And then Tag and the random deputy director. I bet the person who is supposed to say that line about that Triumph says about like maybe we could have the figurehead leader, like that was supposed to be the fifth person in the room, but then Wildbow was thinking like the deputy director wouldn't say that. That's a crazy thing for him to say. But Triumph might say that. I feel like Triumph is in like a really weird place, like with the way he felt at the end of his chapter, like very disillusioned with everything because of Defiant, meaning that Armsmaster is not actually going to jail for breaking the truce, and then like having been in that scene with Dinah when she came to the PRT last chapter, I think he's feeling like off balance because a girl who can see the future, doesn't align with the PRT. And, that information in itself is somewhat perturbing. But yeah. Random deputy director, doesn't even get any lines, not important. Tag, he's does all the Tag things you'd think he would do. I think, yeah, I don't think he does anything surprising this whole chapter. I think Taylor kind of, she keeps like going up to try and like have these different. I'm not sure at this point how Taylor expects to pull all this off. I don't know how I expected Taylor to pull all this off when I was first reading it. But Tag is effectively stonewalling her on the negotiations, and just doing exactly what we'd expect of him. Already talked about Yamada. Hannah's there. Miss Militia, and she is not really intervening on things very much. She's troubled, but has not done a lot of speaking up, which has disappointed Taylor multiple times already. Moving on to our favorite character of the chapter, Quinn Kaye. This hot guy is married, it says right here in my notes. And he's a charming vehicular lawbreaker. He's speeding all over town, probably jumping up over curves to get past red lights and stuff. Who knows what nonsense this guy gets up to. It only takes him 1 extra minute to secure tea, a sugar donut, and a BLT. He's already doing an impossible driving feat by getting there in 5 minutes, but it's going to take him 6 because of the sugar donut. I don't know. This guy and Stan and later on Glenn, I love them all. Most of the non-parahumans in this story do rule. Everybody loves Danny for various reasons, even if arguably not the greatest dad. And we all, well, this podcast, we all stan Pigot. And I stan Vickery. And everybody in the world likes Jessica Yamada. I'm sure we can find one fan who doesn't, but they've never spoken to me. Anyway, I'll stop just gushing about how non-parahuman characters kind of rule. I think the answer is just that that Wildbow's good at writing characters, so even if they don't have a way to blast people with their mind, that's okay. He is super put together. He is able to get down to business if he thinks they gotta do so for time constraints. He's able to keep his cool in these negotiations really well with the heroes. Seems like super efficient and effective and thorough too. The fact that he personally rereads the whole contract, doesn't leave anything up to chance. That's good. So I really appreciate how he gets down to business. But we can move on from him. We'll talk about him more in upcoming chapters. Taylor is sad this chapter because she gets all her charges read to her, and it's a real bummer, and she thinks, what's my dad gonna think? Oh my god. That's what her heart is thinking. But man, she just has that all-timer line about putting maggots in someone's eyes in self-defense. The casual nature in which she downplays the murder of a law enforcement officer, and also a different law enforcement officer already knows about it. So yeah, I don't know. I like that she's being just like totally upfront on the table with Mr. Kaye. That's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I talked about Taylor a lot during the chapter. I'm going to skip on to the powers, knowledge, and world building. I feel like we don't really learn anything about anybody in this current situation's powers, but we learn a lot about the Toy Box group, where we learn, they have various tinkers over the years and have gone up and down in membership quite a lot, and they were taking proceeds from whatever sales or heists or whatever they were doing and funneling it back in the group so that even the members who couldn't really sustain making money would still be able to make enough, or have enough to create tools and stuff to try and up their game. And I have to imagine scanning so many other tinkers' work in an open work environment like that would be incredibly powerful just for that alone. So because tinkers, as we've seen from Armsmaster, Dragon, Kidwin, they can all build off each other and use each other's technology and scan their teammates to get powers, how they got that clock blocker scan for the halberd chain and stuff. So just being able to all combo all these different powers is powerful enough in itself. And then you add in Bonesaw into the mix, and then you add in Guldern Blasto, who we already saw got kidnapped via prehensile spine in that just delightfully horrible scene. So things have gone terribly wrong on the Slaughterhouse 9 front. We thought we had them on the back foot, but now they are resting comfortably on both feet in a hiding spot with a bunch of toys. I guess I can go over their specific things because I didn't talk about most of them. I only talked about the ones who were story relevant. Although for minor details, Bonesaw does use even the side characters, I think. Yeah, so there's Pyrotechnical, a tinker focusing on flame manipulation, special effects, guns. Cranial, a tinker specializing in neurology, brain scans, Raining thoughts, recording thoughts. Uh-oh. Big Rig, a tinker who builds drones that build things in turn, particularly buildings. Bauble, a girl who specialized in glassworking and glassworking tools, including tools that could turn inorganic matter into glass. Dodge, a boy, 12. This means that we have a 12-year-old boy victim of their... I mean, it's like, we always see it's like hospital full of babies and new parents, little kids, the already displaced refugees of Leviathan. It's always just like the most downtrodden people that they come in and like super murder. But yes, Dodge, a boy, 12, who made access devices for pocket dimensions. Toy Soldier, a power suit user with a suit the size of a small building. Glace, a tinker specializing in cryogenics and stasis. Uh-oh! The 9 have access to all of their work? So yeah. We get a big lore dump of these powers at the 9's fingertips, and then our minds are all racing at the possibilities of what this might mean. And also for world building, I think the whole, like, Quinn Kaye existing, his super-powered law firm, like, obviously we know that something like this must exist, but seeing it in action is really cool. And the fact that he thinks they could, like, possibly get her a small sentence or something if they do a jury trial, like, that in itself is amazing, seeing as the time that we've seen a trial happen was Canary's trial, and Canary got. But, you know what? With Quinn here, I believe it. You see that smile? That's a smile you can trust. Yeah, so seeing the legal system in action, seeing the defense lawyer, very cool, very cool. And I think it's nice world building, even though we spend the whole chapter in one room. I am going to jump to the audience participation question. I've only got 2 audience answers, and one of them, rather than being sent to the public thing, so Vic just sent me her answer as a normal message. But I don't think it was private in any way. It's not like something personal, so... We'll go with Vale's answer first. Jessica Yamada. It isn't even close. Strong point of view character, humanizes and reveals human side of anyone she interacts with, and is always on the side, i.e. helping whoever she interacts with. She's one of the best characters in the story overall, and is legitimately impactful in so many ways. Yep, a crowd favorite. I think many to most readers would say Jessica is their favorite unpowered character. And Vale says, Heart Jessica. Vale says, I am not a crowd. Both a singular favorite and a crowd favorite. And then Vic said, I mean, I love Danny, but I'm a fan of that PR guy that Taylor deals with in the next arcs. Cringe icon. And I said, back, Glenn, yeah, he's pretty great. So then I would say mine is, of course, Quinn Kaye. But I think Stan is a close second. I like Glenn a lot, but I prefer Quinn and Stan. And Jessica, you can be my 4th favorite unpowered character. That's right. 4th favorite. Pretty harsh. Actually, no. Jessica's 3rd. Glenn is 4th. Sorry, Glenn. Had to disappoint someone. Some fictional character. I want to give honorable mentions. Of course, I said Stan, and I meant with Danny has been mentioned. I think Pigot is definitely a contender. Pigot's a great character, and adds a lot of flavor to the book. I think she's just so different from a character like Tag or Rebecca Costa Brown. Pigot, pretty cool. Any other unpowered favorites? I think there's got to be someone out there that Greg is their favorite unpowered character. And in the words of We've Got Worm, and said lovingly, fucking Greg. He's so bad as Void Cowboy. He's such a douche online. And he doesn't even know it. He doesn't even know how bad he's being. Anyway, I think that's all my honorable mentions for unpowered characters. There are some other people. There's there's a lot more unpowered characters in Ward. That's what I'll say. I think the Chicago PRT director is kind of funny. He gets in some quips, but I don't think anybody's going to say he's their favorite character. Vale says Emma is 5th place. Emma's actually a great villain character. Vale says that this is true of any group of 5. Is that Emma's the 5th member. Anyway, or the 5th place, but I don't think I can waffle on any more about these unpowered characters. There aren't enough of them in Worm, but the ones we do get are actually pretty great. Oh, I didn't even think about the unpowered soldiers that Tattletale has. Some of them are kind of interesting. Charlotte's cool. Forrest is really cool. I was just totally neglecting that part of the story. And then Sierra. Yeah, Charlotte, Sierra, and Forrest. All high-tier unpowered characters. So, yes. I'm getting a take care and thanks as always already from Vale, but I have yet to quickly post this question. That's right. I actually had one prepared into the Dealy Bop. 22.3. What's a favorite perspective trick that is facilitated by a parahuman power? And then my example being, and you can even have this as your answer. I'm fine with that. My example being in that chapter, Taylor is listening to multiple simultaneous conversations with bugs, which I think is very compelling. So yes, that is next week's question. What's a favorite perspective trick that is facilitated by a parahuman power? I'm going to start up ye old outro music. Oops. Boop. And if I'm going to use this again, I'm going to have to reset that. Thank you, Vale, for being here and chatting. The music used in this episode, as it has been recently, is Imago by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server can be found at the link in the stream description as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. I'm going to give us another taste of that speed draw. and let the rest of the song play out. So just mute my mic and have a good week, everybody.